Hi, my name is Marcy Massura. One of the questions that a lot of my readers, I kind of went out to them and said, what do you want to know? And the really basic one that came back is it a family film? People are concerned about, because like we were saying, appears melancholy because of the black and white, and we're sort of bringing things to life and so on. So just wondering, what is your standard answer on that?
It's definitely a family film because it has the Disney name on it. We're really, perhaps more than anybody, conscious about what we put that label on. So, and we're really serious about that. We take a lot of time. We're, all of us are gin and tonic.
We're not that bad.
It's just gin. We all have families, either nieces and nephews or kids or whatever, and we're really conscious of making these movies for the whole family. Not just kids' movies, but certainly for the whole family, and that's the idea behind this. By the same token, it's fun to be scary sometimes, and entertainment can be scary sometimes. Just go ride, Space Mountain at nighttime or something, and it's okay to be scared. And I think as long as the audience has that assurance that it'll all work out in the end, I think that's part of what makes a great movie.
Absolutely, and I think that just to address the melancholy aspect of it, it's done, and I feel like we really found that sweet spot of kind of telling an important sort of life event for all kids who have pets are going to have to go through, but doing it in ways to really empower the little boy to really kind of come to grips with what it means to take care of something and to love it so much. And so I feel like we've had really good reaction from parents and families who have seen the movie to say, you might have to talk to your kids a little bit about it, but it's in a good way. It's in a way that's really empowering to the little boy.
Thanks.
What else?
Now that we're in the quiet, I know we've gone over it already out there, but could you both briefly go into what people will see out in the exhibit?
Well, the exhibit is kind of a showcase of 3 actual sets from the film with puppets sort of posed in kind of a moment in time from each of those sections. And then also there's a thing called the Tim Burton desk, which kind of shows you what it would be like kind of, from sketch to finished puppet, coming right from the inspiration of Tim's, doodle right through to how we make an armature and how we design a costume and how, what goes into kind of the creation of those puppets and bringing that drawing to life. So it kind of gives you a really good overview of our process, but it also gives you little glimpses into the moments in the film.
In the process of stop action animation, is there any component of like computer generated transitions in that?
There is. If you go back to Nightmare Before Christmas, there was nothing. It was shot on film, that little celluloid stuff. But in this one, there are parts of the process where we use computers, but largely it's a hand-done sport. It's an activity in a style of animation and an art form that's done essentially the same way that it was done back in the 20s and 30s when they were animating King Kong or some of those films, where we use. It's okay to break.
Wow.
We do use computers in the capturing process, so we capture it on a camera, a Canon, 5D or something similar, and that goes into a computer monitor where the animator can check their animation while he or she is working on it. And then certainly for the special effects process, there's some wire removals or some special effects that we can add in the computer later on, or sometimes sky replacements. Instead of building a giant scrim that has clouds painted on it, we can put up a small green screen and then replace the sky with a photograph or some animation later in special effects. But largely, it's a analog, hand-done art form, and Tim kind of leads the way when it comes to using this art form, keeping it alive, and refreshing it and using it in fresh ways that you haven't seen before.
When Nightmare Before Christmas came out, in my perception, it wasn't as well received as it probably should have been. And I know it became really kind of a cult classic over in Japan and then kind of made its way back here to where it suddenly is much more popular in the US, I think, even than it was when it was released. Do you think that now that there has been more stop-motion from Aardman, do you think that the American audience is more receptive to that type of animation?
I think that they are receptive to that type of animation. I just think it's also about the stories and the stories that you tell and the kind of movies that you're making. And so I do feel like that, yeah, people are open and it feels refreshing to see a different kind of animation now. I think at that time it just was a little bit different, and so people took a minute to kind of ground themselves, because there was nothing except for 2D animation really when So it really was vastly different. Now people are used to 2D animation, computer graphic animation, cutouts, there's just a lot more mediums, and I think people are hungry for a variety of types of imagery. So I feel like, yes, they're definitely open to it, and I don't think people care. So I think that if they like it and they like what they're seeing, it's not like people are going, I prefer the other medium of animation. I feel like they're like, because people on Corpse Bride kept saying, oh, it was great CGI, and you're like, it isn't, there's no CGI in that movie, and it just seemed like, but it was so smooth. People thought it was a compliment. They were like, oh, we're complimenting you. It looks like computer made it. And it's like, we don't want it to look like computer made it. It's like, we're trying to really highlight the medium, but I think really the audiences come and just enjoy the stories and the imagery and the experience.
Hi, I'm Carly from the Mom Zoo. Can you explain to us why the Frankenweenie film is fun for all family? I know you guys kind of talked about ages, but why you think it particularly would be fun for a family to watch?
Take it.
Well, I just think that, as you can see, there's so many old movie references, so I feel like the parents will really get a lot of the kind of nods to Boris Karloff or Peter Lorre or, Elsa Lanka.
Yeah.
Like the Bride of Frankenstein and all that stuff. So it does seem like that is going to really appeal to the parents, and then the kids. It's just a fun. There's monsters invading a little weird Dutch village, and it just seems like there's lots of fun sort of stuff, and also real kid empowering stuff. Like the kids really are the stars of the movie, and so you really get to see a lot of. I sat next to a little Japanese boy in one of the screenings, and he just laughed at everything that Toshiaki did. And I said, "Hey, who is your favorite character?" And he went, "Toshiaki. I am Toshiaki." It was like classic, because it was like, oh yeah, he absolutely saw himself in that character, and it was really cute. Like, he didn't think he was a bad guy. He thought he was the star of the movie. So I do feel like kids will see themselves in the different characters, or see people in their class that they can't stand, or one of the characters is called Weird Girl, and we all know Weird Girl. So it just seems like, I think there's lots of fun to be had with, putting yourself into that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. What else?
How different or similar does the finished product look to where you started at the very first meeting, sitting down with Tim and talking about concept?
Wow. Well, this film comes from a short that Tim did, a live-action short in black and white back in the early 80s, so there was some point of departure, although it was never discussed that this would be a live-action film at all. It was always discussed as an animated film. There was a time, maybe for 5 minutes, that we talked about maybe it should be CG or hand-drawn, but immediately after that, Tim said, no, it's got to be stop motion because the technique itself is related to the story. Bringing something inanimate to life is the Frankenstein story, and so it's such a perfect match to the technique. The other thing is, since Tim designed the characters himself, we didn't bring in any outside character designers, and since it was such a personal story for him, the look of it would change slightly, but he really had a firm hand on the steering wheel all the way through. So the most change that happened was really trying to adapt to Tim's handwriting and his drawing style, and everybody rallied around that. He's such an iconic artist, much less a filmmaker. He certainly has had his shows at Museum of Modern Art and LACMA and it's in Paris, and people want to work with him and want to help him execute his style. So I think that, and Allison can speak to this more than I can, but I think that if there were any startup problems, it's people trying to support Tim's vision and trying to get things to look like Tim made the whole movie by hand himself, and that was kind of the challenge of it.
And I think if you look at like some of those drawings and then you look at the finished frame,
Yeah.
it's uncanny how similar they are. I mean, they're fleshed out because they're built, but they're, we've captured the roughness, even in the design of the characters. Like, he didn't want them to be smooth-skinned like Corpse Bride puppets. Like, he wanted you to see the hash marks and the fingerprints and stuff like that, so that you get it, that it's really the graphic quality and the handmade quality. So, yeah, I think it's pretty close to what we started in the end.
Interesting.
The weird thing about Tim is he's so loyal to his own work, is that he would say, I want to look like this, and instead of pulling out a drawing he did last night, he would pull out a drawing from 1982 and say, it should look like this.
Yeah.
So, a lot of artists hate their work that's any more than, 5 years old or something. They say, oh, I've grown so much since then.
Yeah.
He has such confidence in his style that he could pull out a drawing from
Yeah.
25 years ago, set it next to a drawing from today, and you could follow the same string and follow the same line.
That was the cool thing about his LACMA show, if you guys saw it, is that you see drawings he did when he was 12, and you totally know that's a Tim Burton drawing. Like, his style, he was doing him when he first picked up a pencil, and there was such a consistency to it in a way that really, it was, to me, it was astounding. It's really, it's cool.
Neat.
I noticed that this is going to be shown in one of the sensory-friendly showings around the city, usually for children who may have some form of autism or whatever. Is there any way of knowing how that audience will react, or if they are going to react exactly the way every other little child or grown-up is going to react?
I don't know. I hope that they would.
Sadly, we're not psychologists, so, you know,
Sadly, you're
one would
not.
hope it goes
Yeah.
really well, though. Otherwise,
Yeah, because I think that it seems like this is the kind of movie that is, that the black and white quality to it, the emotional quality to it. It seems like that there's a simplicity to this movie that I think we can really convey. So I actually haven't been privy to what they're doing, like for that, like how they adapted for their sensory things. But it is, it's.
The movie part will be the same. There
But
will
the-
just be a little softer and a few lights.
mhm,
Oh, neat. I think that'd be great.
it's fantastic.
You would love it. I mean, you will get a little indication of that in your sneak peek, a little bit, but I think for a different purpose, to a different end. It'll be a little louder and a lot more lights.
What reaction have you got from fans of the short?
We're pretty pleased with how it's been adapted because we really kept the heart and the soul of the short intact and really just gave them more because, you know, like I said, we open it up by spending more time with Sparky before he meets his end. So you really get more fun with living Sparky and the relationship with Victor. And then you get all those extra characters and extra monsters. And so the kernel of that story is intact, but it goes to a whole new place. And so I think it's quite a satisfying adaptation, and it really it's an extension.
We took it to Comic-Con, which was the ultimate test, I think.
That's a tough crowd, too.
People loved it.
We were fearless.
It was fun to see people react to it because it's like your baby. You don't know how it's going to do its first day at school, and then when people like really embrace it, it's really nice to see.
We've been able to walk around and look at the exhibit and the amazing step-by-step process of everything that goes into it and hear a little bit from you guys. How do you feel that these exhibits will inspire the creativity in children who maybe want to grow up to do what you guys are doing?
Well, I just think to me it's always neat to show that this is somebody's job. Like somebody's job is to go in every day and make really tiny, cute things. And I just think for me, it's always like blows my mind that like they're so. You always hear, I always feel like, what do you want to do? I want to be a director. I want to be a writer. I want to be. It's like everyone knows like the top 3 spots, and you're like, but there's so many great things to make. And the thing about stop motion is you can do it on your iPad, on your your computer at home with like your digital camera. Just move things one frame at a time. And so to me, it's a very accessible medium. And I would hope that people could, can get inspired by just that process and do it at home. And also, it's like in the movie, Victor's a little filmmaker. Like, he's making movies at the beginning of the movie as well and just kind of doing things on his own. So I think as a character, he's quite inspiring for kids to
fun.
kind of try it at home.
Absolutely.
Maybe one more question?
When you think of like the future of future projects in stop motion animation, do you see it going more as sort of like the new Paperman short, which is kind of a fusion between